Hey, Rodney Koop here, founder of the New Flat Rate here in Dalton, Georgia. Just wanted to talk for a minute on the subject competing with China. Is it really that big of a thing that China has low wages? Let's just take a look at what low wages does for China and what some of their other issues are. Okay, they do have an advantage. They would say that their greatest asset is their worker. A lot of people like to say that. But what is a great asset? Well, they're taking advantage of low wages. Is that okay? Well, you know, that's kind of how commerce and entrepreneurialism works. The Chinese worker in a shoe factory, as you can see there, makes about $170 a month. And then there's bonus potential up to another $300. So they could make on a good month maybe $470. Well, certainly that's a lot less than America would pay their workers. Shoes like Nike and Adidas can sell for up to $170, so it seems like a recipe for success, doesn't it? But let's take a look at a couple of things. They do have some disadvantages. First of all, they're a long distance from foreign markets. For example, shoes that they want to sell into the United States have to be packaged, shipped, put on container ships, brought across the ocean, and then brought into over here. They've got shipping costs, technology, distribution, all of that. So they also have technology and creativity limitations. Why do I say that? We think of China and Asian nations as being so hip, so advanced when it comes to technology. True on a lot of things they really are. However, when you understand how business works, when you're working thousands and thousands and thousands of people making shoes as fast as you can, trying to balance finicky markets, it's hard to really get ahead on technology. What does that mean? It means, and I'll show you in a minute why, because we have to realize, where does technology come from? Where does innovation and creativity come from? Let's take a look. Oh, they also have finicky markets. You know, people can get tired of a style, and it may be weeks or months before a product manufactured in China gets all the way over to here through the distribution into the store shelves. The Chinese and so when that happens, they might be producing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pieces of a style that nobody wants to buy anymore. Okay, so it's still going to sell, right? But they're going to have to dump the price like crazy. Let's look at something else here. The Chinese worker does not yet have the opportunities to innovate and create from his or her own ideas. Doesn't mean Chinese people are not creative. What it means is they are working very hard just to make ends meet with low wages. That does not leave a lot of time and opportunity for creativity in a society where you're surrounded by millions, if not billions, of people. What other disadvantages do they have? Well, take a look at this. Costs are hard to control. I mentioned shipping earlier. Imagine what the cost of shipping millions of products on container ships does when fuel oil prices accelerate and go up. Market distribution. When they do get them to their markets, they have to pay people to do the distribution. They have to pay all the way through the middleman, everybody up the line. Import costs and foreign distribution. By the way, you would say that everybody has to do that. Well, that's true. But it makes a big difference when you're thousands and thousands of miles away from your market and paying those costs all the way through than when you're closer. So we'll see that in a minute. Now, import costs, well, I just mentioned that. Okay, shoe manufacturers in China say that money can be tight. What does that mean? They're not necessarily getting rich. Not everybody is paying $170 for a pair of Nikes, right? If orders are slow, if they slow down or styles change, they can easily be on the verge of bankruptcy. Once again, they're making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of products, shipping to a market a ways away, and when styles or things change, all of a sudden they're stuck. Those things have to be discounted beyond their control. By the way, if you've been following any of the Chinese news, you'll notice in their business news that these factories are constantly trying to move farther away from centers of commerce to get even cheaper and cheaper labor. Obviously, it doesn't take much to set up a shoe factory when you have extremely cheap workers. What does that mean? Again, creativity, innovation. This is a low-tech functioning piece of commerce. Now, once again, that doesn't mean that everything in China is made that way. We know better than that. What I'm saying is look at some of the major distribution products that they have, why they successfully infiltrate our markets, which is business, by the way. I'm okay with that. Buy low, sell high. That's what we're all trying to do. But what I'm saying is there's two things that are lacking in the Chinese worker. Not that they don't have them. They're not able to bring them to the surface, and that's creativity and innovation. Like most manufacturers, the man isn't always as rich as the worker thinks he is. It's a struggle for Chinese manufacturers to make it as well as it is for anybody else. Could their disadvantage be our advantage? Well, of course it can be in some things. So what's our opportunity? Well, can we in America compete against China's low-wage workers? Could we parlay our advantages enough to overcome their advantages? Think about it. Do we have advantages that would be strong enough so that everything wouldn't have to be stamped made in China? What about the political climate? Even though it's changing in China, it's still all for the state, right? We have basically a communist-based society where the worker, the common person, doesn't have a whole lot of, shall we say, freedom to pursue all of their dreams. So that keeps creativity and innovation down. The Chinese people are busy. They're consumed with making a living. They're held down by a restrictive government, a restrictive environment and culture. Money for innovation and growth is not easily accessible to the average worker. Even though China pours money, right? Pours money into our country in the form of loans. Why wouldn't Chinese investors put money into the American economy or or loan money to the American government, to American business, try to buy American soil? Why wouldn't they do that? What does that tell you? Why is so much money from China being used to buy down our debt over here? Obviously, it's a better investment than building shoe factories over there. Does that make sense? It's a better investment than investing in their own economy. Doesn't mean they're not doing that. Where do you think they got that money? That and other places. Remember, we're dealing with a communist society that typically takes money wherever they find it. So, let's take a look. Don't wake the sleeping giant. That would be China's constant dilemma. Continue to do these things, try to buy off our debt, which they consider to be still a great investment, by the way, which means they understand the power of American ingenuity and American, what word am I looking for? They understand the power of American creativity and the power of the American economy. They consider it to be powerful, powerful indeed. But let's work with America, but don't wake the sleeping giant. Well, let's take a look. What is the American advantage? Innovation. The American worker is creative, and they will step up to the plate every time there's a direct challenge. China's plan? Don't challenge them. The American worker's dilemma. Cable TV and video games. There it is. I admit it. What is our problem here in America? I believe it's cable TV and video games. Many Americans are in a deep, deep sleep. They're not seeing what part they can and must play in not just in world economics, not just in United States or geopolitical economics, just the part they play in their own life, in the economies of scale for their future and their children's future. I'm sorry to say it, Americans are in a deep sleep. And the sand that the Sandman sprinkles over them, cable TV and video games. Terrible. Well, what's America's opportunity? Throw down the gauntlet, challenge the American worker to unleash creativity, innovation, and the spirit of the entrepreneur. That is important. Somehow, somewhere, someone, whether it's political leaders, whether it's business leaders, whether it's education leaders, somebody has to throw down the gauntlet and say, let's do something, American worker, American people, American person, American family. Or as the Guess Who would say, American woman. Somebody has to stand up and unleash the spirit of the innovator, the spirit of the creator, and the spirit of the entrepreneur. The American advantage, do the math. Location. Manufacturing plants can locate in America where materials and labor are abundant. Location. All American markets are easily accessible by air, rail, truck, postal, and private carriers. Public and private education institutions are able to adapt if pushed hard enough by the business climate. And if not, guess what? Business will adapt and create its own education programs. That's how we do it in America. That's how we roll. Training for opportunities in manufacturing, sales, management, and all support for most manufacturing plants can be done in-house when necessary. What does that mean? It means the sleeping giant can be awakened. They can take themselves to the next level without help from foreign markets. We just have to wake the sleeping giant. For America to compete in world markets, for America to rise again to the top in manufacturing, throw down the gauntlet. Wake up the sleeping giant. Take back our markets by creativity, innovation, and the entrepreneurial spirit. America has what every other country wishes they had. Americans. Competing with China? Americans. The creative spirit, ingenuity. Let's rise up, sleeping giant. Let's rise up and let's do our thing. Let's compete on the world markets. Thank you for listening.